An intriguing attempt at recasting the god of hell comes in Hellraiser 2 Hellbound, which paints a far different vision of both hell and its leader. These aren't the usual chasms of belching fire, it's more like a cold stone labyrinth, reminiscent of the work of Dutch graphic artist MC Escher. Think of the Hellraiser hell as a sort of demonically charged IKEA, presided over by a geometric god shape called Leviathan, which in itself is a name of a sea monster that crops up in both Old and New Testaments, and yet this Leviathan in Hellraiser 2 feels dry and metallic and is utterly inorganic. What's interesting, I think, about this hell is that it's not a place of chaos, like many cinematic hells, but rather this one is the home of terrifying order. Here in the Hellraiser world, metal is superior and stronger than flesh, and so the Leviathan demonstrates its superiority as an inorganic shape, and it does it in very physical, visceral ways, by literally peeling back sections of faces and stomachs of humans, so that the vulnerability of their flesh is demonstrated and even mocked. Here, hell is a place of utter exposure where we are revealed as the transient victims shuffling around in fragile meat cases. Leviathan's mission is to expose this fragility and to lord over it with a superior metallic order. The image of skin shedding is a key element of the Hellraiser films, and it's an interesting link with Michelangelo's painting The Last Judgment. In that we see one of the 12 apostles of Jesus, Bartholomew, and he's holding what looks like a coat at first glance, but it turns out that it's actually his own skin. Church tradition has various stories of how Bartholomew died, but the most common is that he was skinned alive and somehow held onto his skin to carry around. There's a statue called Bartholomew Flayed from 1562 that stands outside the cathedral in Milan. Here his skin is thrown over his shoulder like a stole, and he bears more than a passing resemblance to the scary Uncle Frank of the Hellraiser films. Now, while Hellraiser 2 presents an unusual vision of hell, it's hardly the only film to attempt to subvert the common ideas of the underworld. Various filmmakers have tried to break away from the fire and brimstone model to show hell as something a little different. Peter Jackson paints hell as the innards of a fleshy tentacled worm in The Frighteners, that's 1996. Herc Harvey's chilling Carnival of Souls from 1962 presents hell as a monotonous, hollow retread of our earthly life, though some might say that's more like purgatory and is not hell at all. Hell really is a carnival in the horror musical The Devil's Carnival from 2012, where the underworld seems like a gothic twist on Moulin Rouge. If you hate clowns, face paint and show tunes, you are going to despise being tossed into that particular hell. In John Carpenter's underrated theological horror Prince of Darkness from 1987, an extraterrestrial Jesus traps Satan in a green gloop, but now the evil is sloshing out into the world, and the glimpses of hell here are as simple as they are frightening. The abyss is a dense black liquid realm held behind a mirror where the demons within can reach out with clawed hands to break through into our world, and when they finally do, when they touch our world, everything goes black. Hell on earth. Perhaps the hell of 1992's comedy Stay Tuned is one of the most unique. Here hell is being forced to star in a never-ending lineup of demonic TV shows like I Love Lucifer or Driving Over Miss Daisy. But then there's also Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, originally titled Bill and Ted Go to Hell. This sequel to The Excellent Adventure is chock full of the underworld. Yet while there's the requisite fire and rock, the most distressing parts largely consist of enduring a kiss from your hairy-lipped grandmother or meeting the Easter Bunny. Like Ted remarks to Bill when they first arrive in hell, he says, "This is not what I expected this place to look like at all." To which Bill says, "Yeah, we've got totally lied to by our album covers." Now, people have been wondering if there might be some sort of passage or conduit to the places of hell, to hell itself, for thousands of years. The ancient Greeks figured they'd get there through Lake Avenues, whereas the Christians in medieval times were pretty sure that the door to hell was in a cave in Ireland. Or if you were to ask Tertullian, a prolific and influential Christian theologian from the early church, he'd tell you that the gates to hell weren't found in any of those places at all. Rather, it was located, according to him, between the legs of a woman. The French artist Auguste Rodin sculpted his gates of hell at 6 meters high and 4 meters wide, and he built them on the ground floor of a hotel. In movie land, however, the entrance to hell is really up for debate, though it's interesting how often it crops up in dusty deserts. like the 1988 film Ghost Town or the 1992 horror comedy Highway to Hell. The John Travolta-William Shatner Meltfest, The Devil's Reign from 1975, placed the portal to hell somewhere in the arid deserts of the Old West. Satanic celebrity Anton LaVey was the technical advisor on that film, and apparently he served 21-year-old Travolta his first alcoholic drink during the filming. Lucio Fulci's Gates of Hell trilogy sees hell breaking through in the southern swamps of America, but also in a small New England town. In The Gate, from 1987, it's in a suburban American backyard, whereas in Michael Winner's The Sentinel, 1977, Hell's Gate is found in a brownstone Brooklyn apartment block. In Wes Craven's 1984 TV movie Invitation to Hell, the land of eternal suffering can be wandered right into through the keypad-coded doors of an exclusive yuppie health club. And in Ghostbusters from 1984, the gate is found in Sigourney Weaver's fridge. Though to be fair, they don't specifically say hell, so who knows exactly what that realm is. One way of accessing hell seems to be via elevator. Woody Allen's Deconstructing Harry presents a spectacular set of the Dante Dore hell, but it's accessed by slowly descending elevator with a PA system and an air conditioning. And similar modes of hell transport were used in Alan Parker's Angel Heart from 1987. Now, quite where hell is located is anybody's guess, though in the last 20 years, reports suggest that it might be somewhere beneath Siberia. At least that's according to a team of Russian engineers who drilled a hole there, 9 miles deep sometime in the 1990s. When they broke through into some sort of cavity or chasm below, they dropped a heat-resistant microphone all the way down. That must have been an incredibly long jack lead. And what they heard became modern legend. Miles beneath the earth, they'd recorded the tormented, mournful, agonized screams of a great multitude of people. Now, for many, this was proof of a literal hell, and the story spread like fire, particularly amongst Christian broadcasters who were eager to prove the reality of the abyss. Turns out, however, that this was a hoax, and the horror movies were to blame. The sound was just a loop of some screaming sound effects from the Mario Bava film Barren Blood from 1972. Now, whether hell is underground, hanging out in space like some penal planet, or indeed just a figment of our imagination is up for debate. But one suspects that cinema, and horror films in particular, are going to be flinging the infernal gates wide open for many, many years to come. So, as we soar off our chains and we make the slow descent back to the Earth's surface, it's worth pointing out that while hell imagery in cinema is largely fueled by Christian ideas, but also, other religions, Islam and Buddhism and places like that, they all have their hell as well. The exact nature and even the existence of hell is a topic of fierce debate in Christian theology. Many of the more headline-grabbing believers seem to insist that the traditionalist Dante sort of stroke Dory view is what hell is like. Tap Hell is Real into YouTube and you'll meet hundreds of people who believe that that is exactly what it's like, and they even claim to have had glimpses of it and want to warn a jaded world against it. Other Christians say that hell is simply like the atheist's idea of death, a sort of annihilation where the person dies and is no more. The consequences are eternal. They'll never come back, but they aren't being tortured or burned alive in boiling rivers of blood. That seems incongruous with God's character, they'd say. Others even argue that God will get what he ultimately hopes for in the end, that love will win and all people, no matter what their beliefs, will find themselves in heaven. And if they truly hate it there, they still have the choice to enter hell. So the argument, though, is that very few would actually want to do that when they are faced with the reality of it. Despite these nuances in Christian belief, however, filmmakers and audiences seem to find the traditional view the most invigorating. In fact, you could argue that hell inspires more vibrant excitement and artistic expression than its counterpart, heaven. Read reviews of Dante's Divine Comedy, and you'll see people fascinated by the Inferno section, the part in hell, but some seem relatively bored by his accounts of purgatory and heaven. Ask someone to remember a piece of art by Hieronymus Bosch, and it's very likely that the tortured souls of hell spring to mind rather than the happy souls of heaven that he also painted, but not as many remember, including me. It's like the scenes of hell feel more vivid and immediate. as if the fleshy terrors of suffering are somehow easier to imagine than the spectral perfections of heaven. We aren't sure what it might feel like to wander heaven's golden streets, or kick back and chat with an infinite, omnipotent God. That can seem so abstract to us, perhaps unbelievable, and any attempt at creating a perfect world in our mind can often feel like a flimsy stereotype. But we do know what it's like to have our skins burned against a naked flame. And we do know what it's like to be prodded with something sharp, so we can imagine what that must feel if it's a pitchfork. We know what it sounds like when people scream. Regardless of whether hell exists or not, the eternal abyss seems to make a sort of cultural sense to us. It's got traction, particularly in horror, which is why filmmakers have enthusiastically tried to make darkness visible, to depict hell in fun, sometimes forgettable ways, but also as a frightening place of ferocious, relentless terror. Places like this are visually intense, and they are pretty hard to resist for the cinema. It's a medium that feeds on powerful images, and so hell is a natural thing for the cinema to depict.